Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the channel. So good to have you. Mr. Minority coming at you with another Heroscape ranking video. Now we're getting to the thick of it. We are in Wave 2, small Wave 2, I guess you could say. Again, there's no necessarily official title other than Utgar's Rage. You can see a lot of red on the screen, and that's why. Utgar being red, of course. Decent set overall, but now that you're here, let's get to it. No dilly-dallying or being about the bush. So now we got the 4th Massachusetts line. These guys, I'm gonna put B, maybe A. So, while I think about maybe bumping them up a tier, overall, you know, pretty decent. Nothing too special, but they got their weight and fire, which is kind of nice. Does limit them though. But if they do have the weight and fire to implement, especially if all 4 of them can target the same figure, then they actually got quite a hefty hit because, again, typically since they're ranged, they'll probably have high advantage, so they got 4 attack 4 times. You know, that's pretty solid hitting. The Valiant Army defense bonus really probably isn't going to come into play unless you're really, you know, trying to go for that. So other than that, nothing really too out of the ordinary. They're not necessarily, you know, going to, you know, have a great showing. And I just noticed that for some reason their line of sight on the card is off. It only shows 1 figure and barely. I'm not exactly sure why. Anyway, have Heroscapers, thank you for that, but thank you again for the images, Heroscapers. Couldn't do it without ya. Or I could, but it'd just be really, really difficult and take a long time. Okay, Anubian Wolves. I'm gonna put them in the solid B tier. Maybe, who doesn't like a good werewolf, right? These guys are pretty decent. They can be really good. They're really, I almost say, call them a glass cannon necessarily. Oh, I forgot. In terms of the aesthetic, these guys are pretty cool. You know, colonial time warriors, soldiers. You know, pretty decent. Nothing too special, but nice to have a different time representation for the humans, which I think this would have been one of the more. One of the first ones. After the Master Set one. The Anubian Wolves, and again, probably maybe mispronouncing. Can't even pronounce regular English. It all depends on their role. They really can do some hefty damage if they roll a 20. It's extremely unlikely. I'll be honest with you, in all the times I've played them, I don't know if they've ever rolled a 20 when they were going to be in combat, because I think you have to roll with them regardless, so they could, you know, like literally kill themselves or whatever, even if they're not even in combat or engaged. So I don't think I've ever really gotten to use their ability to the fullest. But in terms of design, pretty decent. I like, again, kind of the more fantasy-based stuff. Their designs are pretty basic for werewolves, which is why I don't put them a little higher. If they were maybe a little bit more creative werewolves, I would, without probably hesitation, put them in the A tier. But, you know, they're, you know, pretty average, solid. In terms of this, though, I would put Khosumet lower. I'm not a big fan of his design, I'll be honest with you. There's another hero, I believe, D&D. I haven't gotten any of the D&D again. I liked his. He's like, I think, a huge figure. I don't know what his name is. People can tell me in the comments section, and I can also look it up. I liked that guy's design better than this. Khosumet is, I don't know. I kind of like the Egyptian stuff, but I don't know if Egyptian stuff on a werewolf, and I could be getting it wrong. He could have a very different kind of garb. But in terms of being a hero and how meta he is, not very good. He is kind of nice to combo with the Anubian Wolves because of his ability that adds 1 to their die roll, so that's basically going to prevent themselves from killing themselves, which is always nice, because if you roll 1 with them, you have to destroy 1 of them. And his Relentless boost again, not really going to come into play too much, but it's a little bit of a booster if he's on the front lines. But you know, his health, his defense, his attack, he's not the best guy to put on the front lines. So, you know, not a very good hero. I think, to be honest with you, the Anubian wolves deserve a better hero, and maybe, you know, we'll see some better werewolves come out. Again, I don't do the D&D stuff, so I know they've probably fleshed out a little better there. But yeah, that would be nice. Knights, you know, I always have a soft spot for the medieval time period, and most things associated, at least in terms of the more fanciful kind of tropey setting that we get, and knights are no exception. I really like the knights aesthetically. Now, in terms of how good they are, they're really kind of like a beefier Vikings, right? In terms of, they don't have the movement stuff like with Wild Charge, but they do have Coward's Reward, which is kind of nice. Makes you think twice about disengaging with them. And they do have the champion bonding, which is pretty nice. Yeah, so because of that, that beefs up their points. They're obviously extremely slow, so if you have any, you know, kind of movement demanding boards, they're gonna fall behind pretty quickly. But yeah, they're a solid addition. I would put them in the A tier. No, wait, hold on, no else to say. Now, in terms of this next fellow, Krug, I'm gonna have to put him, you know, I'm gonna have to put him in the S tier. You know, I wrote a fantasy novel, didn't have it published yet, don't think I ever will necessarily, but almost kind of sort of modeled a character off of him. Speaking about the model, here he is. And I mentioned in the previous video that the model looks a little different. So this is the way he looks here. All right, this is Krug. So he's kind of dark. I don't know if you can really tell, but he's a dark green. And in the card, he appears to be like a light green. But excellent sculpt. He's a huge 8. Kind of small for a huge 8, but very intimidating size, again, as you can tell. Take a Roman Legionnaire from the Wave 1. This is the size of a normal human, a medium 5, so you can tell this guy, Krug, is dwarfing him. So, yeah, that's a bit of a size comparison. Krug is so lovable, you know, he just, this is why he deserves the S tier. Such a great figure. Why is he such a great figure? Well, first of all, that smile, no. I like the design a lot. It's a kind of a classic troll design, but then especially with this one, if he looked like he did on the card, he probably would still be S tier, but the way he's designed here looks pretty damn cool, and is hands down S tier. In terms of how viable he has a ton of health, the second most health in the game, tied with I think maybe some other characters, but 8 health. So that's a lot of health. His attack is only 2, and his defense is 3, which is not good. However, everything is invested in his double attack, and which is pretty good, coupled with his Wounded Smash, which is the big one. That's the kicker. The Wounded Smash, which adds 1 more attack for every wound you get. So because you have so much life, you can get a lot more potential attacks. So Krug potentially could have 9 attack, double attack. So he's one of those guys that you want to ignore, because 2 attack with double attack is not really going to do much. You ignore, and then all of a sudden you concentrate fire on. So he's only worth 120 because, you know, he can fall pretty easily and pretty quickly if you concentrate fire on him. But if you miscoordinate an attack, or you get some bad rolls and you leave him alive accidentally, and you know, half-ass the job, and you know, let him have that 9 or close to attack, he can do some damage. So really like the design, like the kind of the attack philosophy behind that design. So excellent character. Morrow drones, I'm gonna put them here. So the Morrow drones are pretty decent, especially when it comes to meta, being able to activate multiple of them, and their hitboxes in terms of the things all over the place. But I'm not a huge fan of the design, relatively speaking. I'm going to put it a little above Khosumet. They're interesting for Marrden because they got the crests, but not super creative relative to other Marrden potential designs. Speaking of Me-Burq-Sa, we're going to put Me-Burq-Sa probably here. Me-Burq-Sa is pretty solid. The skeleton horse is kind of nice, and then the Marrden riding him is very, average. Yeah, Me-Burq-Sa is a pretty decent figure. Very, very meta if you're talking about the 400, point thing. In terms of a large point army, not quite as effective. But the thing is he has such high movement. He can move all over the place. His crippling gaze, or whatever it's called, can really kind of help to do some decent damage. Not that much life, but again, the main selling point of him is the lack of points, right? He's really easy to fit into most armies, really versatile, has a really high movement, and coupled with that, the range. So Me-Burq-Sa can really change, flanks and react very quickly to changing battle environments. Next, I kind of almost want to put these guys in the S tier because I love their designs. Remember what I mentioned before about Darklord? I'm going to put them in the A tier for now, maybe because it feels blasphemous to put them right beside Krug. I don't know. I really like them. They might be my favorite Curie squads, if nothing else in terms of the design aesthetic. Really like them. They're intimidating looking, they're creative looking, they're red, with the intimidating axes and armor. That I like that their face is mostly hidden behind that fairly intimidating helmet. In terms of how meta they are, they're pretty solid. They unfortunately have very slow movement, which is kind of mitigated by their flying ability. It, again, really depends on the board. But their big selling point, of course, is their not double attack, but it's like the hit thing, the deadly strike. That's what it's called. Which can really, rack up some decent damage, especially since they're flying. If they can, place themselves in a good position and have 3 attack and then roll at least 2 die, then they can really put on some good hurt, and especially if they are in Darklord's aura. Speaking of Darklord, then of course they have Utgar's orders, which is it's pretty decent. It's pretty specific. There's not a whole lot. I'm trying to remember off the top of my mind. I probably should prepare more for these videos. But I do have I do know Heroscape fairly well for not researching right before. But am I bragging? Shut up! What do you think guys are watching? Anyway, there's only two. There's only 2 Darklords. Yeah, there's only 2 Curie that follow Utgar in the base game, and that's Darklord and Runa. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's only 2. So you don't have a ton of versatility with that particular ability, but it's nice to have. So I really like them. I'll leave them here. I won't leave them there. I really like them. I really do. And it's one of those that's like when you lose them, you lose one of them off the board, you're a little bit heartbroken. That's me with this one. I really like them. I really like the way they look, and I like their abilities. They're high defense, and they're low attack, but then, of course, mitigated with that deadly strike. So, yeah, they're pretty good. They're difficult to take down in terms of their defense. So, Denric, I'm going to put him up here. I don't like him as much as the Knights in terms of his aesthetics. I like the way he looks, because he's a Knight. Not anything terribly interesting, but then he has his helmet off, so it's like, okay, well, it's okay. Got the blonde hair going. In terms of his stats, I like his stats. He's a very solid hero, where he's got the 5 life averages, but then he's got the 4 attack and then 4 defense, so it's a little bit above average, right? We're getting into that pretty decent territory. And then he's got the giant killer, which is nice because there's a lot of cascading effects, so to speak, where huges and larges will have, for the most part, advantages over the smalls and mediums, whereas he's kind of counteracting that, where he's attacking larger huges, he gets a +2 attack die. And then of course he has Coward's Reward, which is nice if you're engaged, especially with a powerful hero who wants to leave for some reason or another. So yeah, pretty good hero overall. Swog Rider. I'm gonna put Swog Rider actually in the C tier. Then not just because I have no one in the C tier yet, but I'll put him in the C tier because I'm not a huge fan of the saber-tooth tiger design. If it were larger and more intimidating looking, enunciate please, I would put it much higher. It's kind of sad looking, to be honest with you, almost like it's hardly large enough to bear the weight of its rider on its back. It kind of makes my back hurt looking at that. And it's not a dinosaur, right? It's not it wasn't around the same time period as the Tornak with the raptor and the Grimnak with Tyrannosaurus Rex. And when we were younger, as kids, we made fun of the Swog Rider. Swog Rider was the butt of many of our jokes. He is terrible, but he's 25 points, so you kind of expect that. Very, very fast, can move across the battlefield and change flanks if need to. Has some support, especially with the the Gruts. Remember I said the Gruts were absolutely terrible last time? Well, it's like he's going to help it a little bit. Disengage, sure, whatever, run through enemies. But yeah, just a very, you kind of wouldn't expect a whole lot with 25 points, and when you see him, that's kind of what you expect. So, pretty lackluster, and I would say in the design as well, it's okay, it's not bad, but that coupled with the bad stats and everything else, I bumps it down a little bit. So there you go, Utgar's Rage, wave number 2. Overall, a pretty good set. I like this one. It really started to kind of establish Utgar as the dominant force on the battlefield as we move into the kind of storyline that's behind in the background, and especially as it goes towards Master Set 2, and we find that Utgar is kind of more or less in control the most. So yeah, some good designs here, getting some good historical units in the mix as well as fleshing out more factions like the Morrow. And then of course we have another representative from the Orcs, and then some more fantasy elements like the werewolves, excuse me. So a little bit smattering of a few things. We don't have any sci-fi in this set, which is a bit of a disappointment, kind of brings it down. Other than that, it has a pretty good mix, so good solid set. So hope you guys enjoyed this video and this series. I know I'm enjoying it. I love Heroscape, love talking about it. Could talk about it for a lot more, but gotta keep in mind that I got my throat to think of, according to the last video. Kelda prescribed that I should keep the length down a little bit. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.